Hey everybody, Jason Sherman here. In today's episode of Zero to CEO, I'm going to talk to a mission-driven entrepreneur, Elizabeth Brunner. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
And you are the visionary behind StereoType Kids. We're going to talk about how to grow yourself and grow your business. I always feel like if you grow yourself as a personal, just as a human being, it's the same as also growing your business. But you have to be a healthy entrepreneur, right? So let's talk about the concept behind being a better person and, how that helps your business grow as well. It's a little bit off topic, but I kind of wanted to get into that because you are an entrepreneur.
I am. It's a great question, actually, because, personal development is parallel with my business for sure. And I often tell people I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I had no intention of starting a new business. I had a business previous to this, but once I closed that business in 2018, my intention was not to start a new business, but I was very called to start StereoType Kids because of my own kids who started sharing clothing at a very young age, at the age of 4. So my son was interested in my daughter's clothing, and my daughter was interested in my son's clothing, which was a very unique experience for me, which had me question a lot of things about myself. So instead of, quote unquote, correcting my kids, I let them be. But that took some personal development on my own to basically ignore anything else.
Navigate it and also navigate the situation because it was new to you. And by the way, you mentioned it was an accidental entrepreneurship, but it was a happy accident because it ended up, and those are the best businesses when you kind of fall into something that is a pain point in society or the world. You're like, well, wait a minute, this is a problem that I need to fix, or this is like a cause that I need to attach myself to. And so I look around, is there something like it? And I don't maybe see anything like it. So that's when the kind of idea, the genesis happens. So I really like that. Unlike your kids, I was forced into getting hand-me-downs from my brother. So, I had to wear his raggedy shirts and pants and whatever else I was given by my mom. But let's talk about the inspiration behind your brand. You mentioned your kids are wearing each other's clothing. There's a huge gender situation happening in the world over the last couple decades. I mean, people think it's new, but it's really not. It's been going on for decades. What was like the emergence of StereoType Kids? Like, when was the day when you realized, well, my kids are sharing clothing, maybe other kids want to share clothing too, so maybe I should make clothing that anybody can wear?
Yeah, another great question. I mean, it was really just observing my kids, right? And the way that they were lighting up inside when my daughter was putting on, my son's camo shorts and dinosaur t-shirts. She felt really great about herself. Same for my son when he was trying on a sparkle skirt and, a unicorn top. It was very apparent to me that they were naturally drawn to these things because of their own curiosity and because it made them feel good about themselves. So for me, it was just really shifting my focus from, making sure that they were feeling seen and feeling loved no matter what. And for me, it was stepping off and not interfering in their clothing choices. And that was a huge epiphany for me, for myself as well.
I love that. And look, I don't have any kids. I've had dogs. I had to give them clothing, so I kind of know a little bit about clothing a child in a way. But a lot of my friends have kids, and I notice boys have boy clothing and girls have girl clothing. It's very obvious. Like the girls are wearing Frozen, pink, blue stuff, and then the boys are wearing superheroes and like you said, camo stuff. But there's this concept of blended fashion, right? And how does that challenge traditional gender norms in children's clothing?
Yeah, so for me, I coined the term blended fashion because it was really taking boy and girl wear and blending them together. So the masculine and the feminine, and really elevating that and making them equal. So it wasn't one was better than the other. It was like, no, they both are equal in value and should be defined by no one. So for me, that's how I really focused on designing the clothing, is taking those two elements and putting them together in the collection. And, I feel very successful in doing that.
Yeah, and I think from what I read on your website, promoting individuality is like the core concept behind StereoType Kids. So how do you see this mission impacting not just the children who are wearing your clothes, but their families? Because you mentioned you have to also be a part of that. And then, of course, society.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a clothing line for kids, but it's a message for adults as well, because just because you're an adult doesn't mean you're not learning and evolving and growing. And so it does take a mind shift for parents to look at their child and say, I want them to be happy no matter what. I love them unconditionally. That means without condition to what they're wearing. That to me, that's a big focus. But that also goes back on the parent, right? As like, well, how am I not expressing myself? And how do I want to promote my own individuality, which is something, again, I came to understand about myself along this journey of entrepreneurship. And it just is really parallel to, evolving and growing yourself.
This is such an important topic in general, like individuality. I have an app that is really big on gender identity and inclusivity, but we focus more on authenticity, right? Being an individual, of course, but being authentic to yourself. And so our app originally, I didn't plan it. It was an accident for me too, right? I didn't plan on welcoming all of the LGBTQ community, people who didn't have a gender or identity, and all of a sudden they feel safe, they feel welcome, and kind of navigating that for me as well was a challenge because, I'm just a regular guy, and of course my team understands it a lot more than I do, but I've learned, I've adapted, I've kind of evolved into this person who also understands that everybody has their own individual identity and they don't have anywhere to speak or, feel seen, right? They're judged everywhere. But so our platform has become this kind of safe haven. And it sounds like you've also created some sort of ecosystem where people feel like they're seen. So how do you make sure that your brand's message, right, of individuality, of being able to be themselves, how do you make that remain central to your decisions that you make?
It's what drives me is really supporting. I have twins, right? So normally people think, oh, you have twins, they're the same. You're dressing them the same, they're the same person, they have the same interests. And that's clearly not the case with my twins.
I've seen them on your website. They don't clearly look the same.
They don't, and they're a boy and a girl. So
boy and a girl, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, they're very different, but people still make the assumption that they're very similar. And I think for me, going into parenting as a mom of twins, I was very conscious of the fact that these are two very individual, it's two very individual souls. So for me, you saying authenticity and individuality, they really do go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so for 100%. Me, it's important to create a platform, to create a community, which I actually just launched Club STK, which is a community platform on my website to support people who are curious, who have questions, who want to understand more, get some resources, because people do need to be seen and heard. No matter what your background is, everyone has that desire. And so for me, it's really important to create a safe space for it, just like you with your app.
It sounds very similar because like the biggest word that we use for our app is community, right? Like bringing everyone together to speak on a safe, private forum where they can be not be judged and be themselves. So we have a lot of synergies and I really like that. We'll have to talk more about that. And in the meantime, you said you had to become this, well, you had a business, but then you weren't going to start another one. Now, there must have been a reason why you didn't want to start another business. I'm assuming you've had some challenges, you've made some mistakes, you've had some hard days. Tell us, all of us, listeners, everybody, what were some of the challenges you've encountered or the major obstacles that you faced, how you navigated them, how you got through them? Because that's what everybody wants to know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still navigating and getting through them.
Aren't we all?
But I think for me, it was overcoming my own fear about putting myself out there. I'm actually pretty introverted, and I knew starting a new business would be the opposite of what I'm used to. So I really had to get comfortable being uncomfortable, starting a new business. And that's not an easy feat for me. So it's really a challenge, but I'm so committed and driven by this cause. My kids are my co-founders, and they're watching me very closely.
That. I hope they have a lot of stock options.
That's right. They work for clothes right now. They work for trade.
They're good for snacks and clothing. Got it.
That's right. Yeah. So, keep that. Yeah.
So getting being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? There's had to be a moment when you had to step out of your comfort zone, right? In order to grow your company. So can you share a moment when that happened, when you were like, oh, this is not comfortable for me, but I have to do it in order to grow? There's got to be a moment.
I could say just right now, having a conversation with you, putting myself out there, really telling my story, really that vision has been a step-by-step process. And, if you listen to some of my earlier interviews, you can hear me, fumbling and saying a lot and just not, being very comfortable doing the process, but it's all part of the journey. And I think for me, I've had to make a lot of peace with that I am on this journey. I've been called to do this very specific business that's very unique, but I'm very passionate about. And so I do need to align with that as much as possible, even if it makes me uncomfortable. So honestly, it's
I
just
can't tell. I'm sorry. It sounds like you've done this 1,000 times. You seem comfortable and 100% great. So like, I think maybe it sounds like you've learned from all of the uncomfortable moments, and you've learned that it's not that big of a deal, and that you just gotta do it, right? You just gotta kind of just get through those moments that are uncomfortable, right? And
That's right.
and
I mean, I'm sure you can relate to that. It's not, it's, all the
oh yeah,
components need to
absolutely.
be there, but it takes a lot to get a heavy lift still to get them out there. So for me, it's a commitment that I have to myself, to my kids, to other kids. Like business isn't just for my kids, it's for all kids. It's
It's
not
for
just
all
for
kids.
me, it's for all adults. So for me, I'm advocating for everyone and everyone's individuality, everyone's self-expression, everyone's authenticity, because those are things we desperately need in this world. And creating a community that honors that and respects that is what we all are craving.
We agree on that 100% because I'm doing the same thing with Spinner, so I get it. And we've both grown, obviously, right? Like I used to be, really introverted and like shy and like hard to speak in public or on interviews, and I would stumble. But with experience and time, you realize it's no big deal, right? You just gotta calm down. Your experience, your knowledge comes out. It's a lot easier when you know what you're talking about. And, in your case, you've grown this company. I think it's amazing. And you probably have some initiatives or some projects that are going to be coming in the future. Do we have anything to look forward to from StereoType Kids
Yeah.
besides what you've done already that you want to talk about?
Well, as I mentioned, I launched a community page earlier this month. So I'm really excited and proud about that because it is a platform that offers vetted resources. And also it's a space where you can ask me questions about raising twins, about gender identity, about fashion, all sorts of things. So I'm really happy about that. And I'm also working on a children's book
Ooh.
that will be coming out hopefully this year, at the end of this year. So some
Are you gonna write and illustrate it yourself, or you have an illustrator working
it's
with you?
already written and it's being illustrated right now. So it's kind of in those final stages to get the creative side. So then
Can
getting
you give us the 30-second story pitch?
So it's actually a story about a snake who is one of the characters on my website. It's called the StereoType Zoo, and it's a story about a snake who really wants to wear a T-shirt but feels like he can't because he doesn't have arms.
Oh,
It's all about him overcoming his fear of being who he is with the help of his friends, and it's a really great story. It's super sweet. I'm really excited about it. It's called "Me Is All I Want to Be," which is the tagline for StereoType Kids.
I love that. I guess he was tired of wearing a sock and he just wanted to.
Yeah, he wants to have some style too. I mean, he's a skateboarding snake, so
Right, right.
he needs to show himself off.
The sock wasn't cutting it. So if you had to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs that are on their path, what advice would you give them when it comes to building a mission-based business?
Follow your heart. I'm very heart-centered. I would not have launched this business if I wasn't fully committed with my heart. And you really have to be, right? If you're not in it for the right reasons, then you're going to lose steam. So if it's not something that you're really passionate about, that's really calling you, that you feel like you can really commit to, you need to ask yourself, is it worth it? Because as you know, it's a day by day commitment and it's for the long haul. It's not, this business isn't for me to make a bunch of money. It's for me to get this message out about inclusivity, individuality, and authenticity.
I love it. And where can people find out more about you guys? I mean, we've been talking about it so much, but you can plug all your links or anywhere that you want people to check you out.
Great. Well, it's stereotypekids.com and our Instagram is stereotypekidsofficial.com as well as Facebook, same handle.
Awesome. So everyone check out stereotypekids.com and check out Stereotype Kids Official on Instagram and Facebook. This was awesome. Go buy their clothes. Give it to your kids. Give it for gifts, Christmas and all the holidays and birthdays. I love the clothing. It's really cool. Awesome, Elizabeth. Thanks again, everyone, for listening, and hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next episode.